I have always placed very little weight about what others think and perceive.
Good on
So, no, I don't think it's a very productive use of my time. The way people perceive us is not necessarily something which is in our control.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't matter what we do at times.
So Sabah,
What's up?
a lot of people, I don't know this, but when they meet me, I make sure to tell them that here at Dawn, we are a very pro-woman organization. Like we have, all our HODs are women. Or majority of our RJs are women.
Facts.
Majority of our, I mean, if you look at, even if you turn on the TV, you will see a woman once every hour.
Literally.
Literally. A lot of women in very powerful positions and powerful roles. And we had one such woman who had come on to one of our other shoots, our other shows, recently, and we really liked her. So we were like, you know what? The perfect place for her to be is right here with us.
With a bunch of other women.
With a bunch of other women on this very women-centric podcast. I mean, all the other shows, yeah, great. Fine, but this is where you need to be. So today on the pod, we have with us Sonya. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, we're really glad. We had to bring you back because we saw what you had done earlier. How was that?
It was great. Absolutely.
Did you
Always a
enjoy it?
pleasure being back at Dawn.
Excellent. We keep calling you back. Once you come onto this podcast, we just keep bringing people back.
And please know that's like not an empty threat. We've actually done
dear.
it 3 times this week. And each one of them were like, we got you. And they're like, no, we agreed to be here. And we're like, no. We got you. We manifested this. We made it happen. So yeah, just clear.
So
yourself.
tell
Well,
us.
I hope that I'm going to be good enough for you to want me back.
Oh,
So,
100%. 100%.
I've already enjoyed our talk before the camera was
Oh,
on.
good.
Me and Elhaam always say this, that like when we're preemptively, that's not the word, but when we're talking preliminary conversation before we enter off the record, we're always like, we wish there had been like a camera at this point so that we could have caught all this.
We have the
but-
best conversations in the makeup room.
Yeah.
Let's be real, right?
Yeah.
Right before the episode rolls. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like for people who have been watching our podcast, our audience, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I'm currently working as the Regional Communications Director at Tetra Pak. I oversee the Greater Middle East and Central Asia regions. That's about 24 countries.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a bit. I'm on a plane a fair bit.
Awesome.
Which I enjoy a great deal. So I've been at Tetra Pak for about 8 years now. Joined as a communications manager, climbed up the ladder fairly quickly. Before that, I used to work in oil and gas. I used to head the marketing and communications function at Total.
Wow.
Oil and gas, as you would imagine, is a very, very male-dominated
Yep.
business. I was, I think, one woman in a sea of men. But I enjoyed working there a great deal.
Yeah.
And before that, I've held various roles in FMCG companies, financial services, but always on the marketing and communications side.
The fun side.
We were talking about how long, we've been at a particular role, and I was looking back today, and September 1st, I actually completed 22 years of a working career.
Hey.
So, yeah. It's been
That's something to
been a
celebrate.
long ride. It's
I'm
been a
so
long
glad you're
ride.
celebrating it here with us.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
excellent. No, that's awesome. And considering this, the one thing that everybody will always, the one preconceived notion, especially in Pakistan, is that women are going to get married and then they're going to leave the job.
Right.
But hello, there's a woman right here, 24 years and still going strong. It's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
It's commendable.
Thank you. It's been a ride. It doesn't seem like over 2 decades. It seems like I just started a few months ago.
Right.
But I think that's where I've been lucky. I've had good roles, good people to work with that haven't made it seem like work. They've made it seem like this, a journey on which I'm learning and doing stuff that I love. I
Right.
think that's where I've been the luckiest, that I've gotten to do the things that I really love to do, especially in the role that I'm in right now. So I think there I've been, touchwood, very, very lucky as well.
And I feel like comms is one of those roles
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
you will suddenly just be standing on a ledge of a building and there's a purpose for it and it matters, and it's one of the most exciting things. I think media is sort of like a thing with comms as well, and we just get to enjoy that. And when I first started working in Pakistan, I was asked a lot, working about, it's questions always come up. You interview people. I was a fashion journalist, so we talk about what's it like being a woman in your field and stuff. And I would get that question a lot. And I said, well, media is one of the few places where it's not a surprise to see someone, like in charge. But then when you actually get nitty gritty in it, you're like, yeah, but there's not that many of us walking around in the building,
especially in very high profile roles. There aren't that many. I mean, even within the media industry, you see a lot of people, mostly male, in higher positions. Which is why I keep saying that at Dawn, you won't see that. You'll walk into a sea of HODs that are all women, and then you'll have that one bichara guy in a room, and like literally in our boardroom being like, hi, I'm here. We had a moment just like that earlier. But one of my favorite questions to ask anyone when it comes to like, careers, and when it comes to like career goals and whatnot, the journey that you've had, right? If we can just deep dive a little bit into the journey that you've had, the kind of like, what was it always like when you first started? What did you envision? Where did you envision that you would be in the next 20 years?
So, speaking about my journey, we might have to do a few episodes on that one. But no. So, for as long as I can remember, since I was a child, this is something that my parents would kind of din into my head, that you have to have a career, you have to stand on your own 2 feet. It was never...
I can hear my dad saying it in my ear.
It was never, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was never, bade hoke tumne shaadi karni hai. No, you have to stand on your own 2 feet, you have to have a career. I remember my mum telling me things like, even if you marry a billionaire, always keep your own career, etc., because financial independence is so important. And I think we see several examples of that happening today where, that can be the deciding factor between a good situation and a bad situation. So I think it's something that I've heard since childhood, and of course it's something that I wanted to do. The other thing was that all around me in my family, in the kind of people we met, I never really met anybody who wasn't doing anything. And so it seemed very natural to want to do something, to want to make a life of your own, to want to stand on your own 2 feet. So, and then I come from a very long line of very strong, very independent women who have had very secure men in their lives who have supported and encouraged them. So that's the kind of environment I grew up in, and I was very lucky.
I was going to say, mashallah, that is a blessing.
That's a blessing. I realize that it's an anomaly, but that's what growing up was like for me. So it seemed a very natural transition. So that was already in my mind. I had a few semesters left in finishing my MBA, and at that point in time, my father passed away. I'm an only child, and at that point in time, I was 21, and suddenly it became not just a choice, but a must to become financially independent, because suddenly the breadwinner in the family has gone. We went from here to below zero in a few seconds, because that's how fickle life is. So, I didn't really have time to wail and moan and say, why me? I had to just get into action. So I finished my degree. I managed to get TA-ships, etc., to help with the funding of my degree, and I managed to finish it. And then the first thing was to try and get a job ASAP, because I knew I needed the money. So I really didn't have a strategy, to be honest with you, that I want to, and I didn't have the luxury of thinking about, this is the industry I want to work in, this is the kind of role I want, etc. I took the first job I got that was offered to me.
What was it?
It was at a financial institution that was entirely run by women.
Oh.
Oddly enough. So it was the first women's bank. That's where I started
was
working. that's where I started working. And I had a job running something known as the Business Center, which was something for women entrepreneurs to help them, because they gave a lot of loans to women entrepreneurs. So it's to help them market their goods and services, have organize exhibitions for them, help them with their marketing strategy, etc. So that's what I was doing. But very soon going into that, I realized that this is not a place where I can sustain and keep on going, because even though conceptually it was a great idea, I think it was just not a very nice place to be.
Right.
And especially being a young person going in, I quickly realized that it was not the place for me.
Was it because of the environment, or
Yes.
was it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Toxicity.
It wasn't. I mean,
Yeah. It was a very, I don't want to use the word, but it was a very toxic environment. And it was not very welcoming to new people or younger people for that
Right.
matter. And I just thought, it's not a question of not liking the work. The work itself was very nice. But I was in an environment where I knew I'm never going to go beyond this. I'm never going to
you
grow.
knew that there was a
Yeah,
there was a ceiling,
there is a
and then you
ceiling,
just
and I'm
couldn't-
never going to go beyond that.
Which is kind of
Yeah.
funny and weird to hear, because I mean, you'd think that an
One
all
would-
women
yeah.
organization would open every door and every ceiling, and there wouldn't be a ceiling.
No.
Like they would constantly push
Yeah,
you up
literally
the
a
road,
drop
but-
top
but
convertible
that's
is what
something-
I'd imagine. Yeah.
But
No, but that's what it was.
Interesting.
So I was there for almost 2 years. And the funny thing was that I was earning 6,000 rupees. That was my first salary.
Wow.
This is way back in 2002, where that was still a substantial amount of money.
yeah.
And I told my mom, I said, no, they're giving me 12,000, so I'm going to give you half. So I'm going to give you 6, so you keep that. So almost 2 years, I roamed around without a penny in my pocket.
Is she going to find out about this on this podcast?
She
hope you told her.
unfortunately passed away last year.
I'm so sorry.
So she can probably hear it. So
she's
she
listening
probably
now.
knows now, but there's not much she can do about it.
Right.
But yeah,
You were, how old at this time? 22, 23?
21.
21, yeah, man. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's really sweet. That's
Yeah.
an amazing daughter.
So that's what happened in the first job.
Right.
And I moved on. I got a job at UBL, etc.
And then
It was like an MTE program, etc., which we entered into. I was there for about a year and a half. I got a really good opportunity at a local confectionery company called Mayfair, which was, I have to say, the funnest job ever. Because it's literally like working in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you get to innovate and, do all these amazing things, and you're experimenting with flavors, and you're
Yeah.
test consumers are little kids that come in from school
That's
and they
awesome.
try the different things. It was an amazing opportunity.
It also kind of, I feel like jobs like that also kind of open up your mind
Oh,
to all
yes.
kinds of possibilities
Oh, yes.
of
Oh,
marketing,
yes.
because it's a different audience you're marketing
Absolutely. And that I think was my first real big break, so to speak. That's where I landed a good position. I became an assistant brand manager. I was working on a category on my own. It's the first time I shot TVCs for myself, and that was like the big break. Started making better money, etc.
to. So what was it? Was it like the title, or was it the money plus the title plus everything else that made you
Everything, I
feel more
think.
empowered?
Everything, I think, because I felt, having started at just taking the first job, maybe I had not made the right choice or not ended up where my peers were ending up.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, I realize now that everybody has their own time and their own journey. I'm today where my peers aren't, and they were ahead of me a few years ago, and now some of them are and some of them aren't. And it's really all very relative when you look back.
Yeah.
It's everybody has their own very unique journey.
So that's
Yeah.
really interesting that you talk about your peers, because this is something that I would always hear from like for example, one of my cousins, he's a banker, and he would always talk about where his peers are, and they would always compare, and it was
Yeah.
always a boys club that was comparing, oh, I'm here now in my career journey, I'm there, I'm now CEO, I'm now this, I'm now that. I've never actually heard women compare with the other peers. Like it's not a gender thing.
It's
though.
actually it's not something that I've done very consciously. It's other people bringing it to my attention.
Right.
So, I've never really thought about it. I just want to be better than where I was in a previous position, in a previous role. even better than what I was last year. I want to be doing better. I want to try and work towards being a better version of myself with every passing year.
Right.
I love that.
So-
That's a good attitude to have, honestly,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Because people have asked me, because a lot of my job is on social media, and I get asked, like, how do you not compare? Like, how do you not
No.
get depressed? And I'm like, thankfully, and I know I'm saying this from a place of privilege, but like in my brain, Instagram is just a resume. So
Yeah.
like, I don't look at it to view and compare with other people.
Yeah.
Because I do think that we are more focused on like humkind.
Personal,
you know?
yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I'm always more focused on, okay, what's the next big move? How do I make things better for myself, family, etc.? How do I do that?
Right.
So I've never really looked here and there. It's always been just
Yeah.
focused on doing my thing.
Right.
But it does come to my attention from other people as like,
Of course.
you're like the most successful person. Like, that's not true. I'm pretty sure there are others.
And you're like, can you just...
Yeah.
But it's a corporate world thing. Yeah. It's something the boys have made up.
Yeah.
It's a corporate world.
True.
It's that competitiveness within
It's
them
like
that
sometimes
comes
when
out.
they'll say like an acronym or an abbreviation to me, and I'm like, I literally don't know what you're saying. They're like, oh no, but he's like a VPD, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean. Like I'm not up to date on the terms,
Yeah.
my friends.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what you do.
No, that's
Yeah.
corp speak. So
Yeah.
most of us who are in the corporate world know what that means.
Yeah. He's like,
But,
I'm a SV. Somebody was like, well,
SVP.
he's just a VP and I'm an SVP. And I was like, you both should take medicine. Like, I don't know. Like, you both sound unwell. I don't know what to tell you. I was like, I'm a clown who shows up and makes jokes.
The poor guy's probably worked really hard to get there.
to get that S
Yeah.
in his VP
Yeah,
status. So we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and also stemming from like you talk about personal growth, and that's what you're more focused on.
Yep.
Right? It's a very personal journey for you, the growth element. But like also, do you ever feel like, and we talked about this, so I know your answer, that we as women, especially in the corporate world, have to constantly battle ourselves in the kind of work that we're doing, where we're working double the amount, or we're putting in double the amount of effort, because in our heads we feel like we need to prove something, whether it's to ourselves or whether it's to everyone else out there. Like, what's your take on that?
Well, it's not just in your head. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
I think, all right, let's be fair. I think to anyone new who's entering an organization, be it a man or a woman, you do have a thirst to prove yourself. And that's sort of what everyone expects of you as well, because they've hired you to do a particular job and all eyes are on you and you are under scrutiny to see how well you will do, right? I think, to be honest, the pressure is more on women.
Yeah.
Because I think so little is expected of them that they have to work twice as hard to be considered just as good as a peer who's a male, whereas perhaps the male would not have to work as hard.
Has that
And,
happened
yeah.
to you
I think
at any point in your career journey?
I think it's so stemmed within us. It's not something that anybody says or verbalizes. I think it's just such a intrinsic feeling that you have that I'm going to have to come and prove that I really deserve to be here and I earned my place here. I didn't just end up here for just no reason.
I saw it with my own eyes. Like I literally saw with my own eyes that the women in this organization, I mean, they are cupping, they are hyperventilating. Like it was like every day was war. And I'm seeing the bosses sitting and smoking cigarettes laid back with like men who worked there, who were sometimes even like in the hierarchy of a corporation, like they were supposed to be the ones running around like crazy, and that just wasn't happening. And me and one of my friends, actually one day she confided in me, because this was primarily happening on her team. I was in marketing and comms, so as you know, that's where they think that most women are going to come in and work in these places. And she was like, I'm starting to get like humiliated because I'm doing all this work and then I'm not even invited to present it. My colleague who spent most of the day like, you know, surfing Amazon or whatever they were doing is in there. So I've seen it happen with my own eyes, but I've also felt that thing you're talking about, that I'm like, it's almost like I'm like, let me not make them regret that I'm here. And like, they've done me such a favor. I used to act like they've done me such a favor that I have a job and like so panicked about everything that I actually had a boss be like, you were hired to make us money. Like, no one's done you a favor. I don't hire people because I feel bad for them, because I felt like I needed to be the best thing that's ever happened to them, or I'd somehow insulted this. It was a very strange thing that I'm still honestly like unraveling till this day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have a different take on that, at least for myself. I have always placed very little weight about what others think and perceive.
Good on
So, no, I don't think it's a very productive use of my time. So I would much rather focus on what I'm doing. And I think we were talking about it earlier as well. Yes, it is an organizational thing as well, that, you know, maybe women need to prove themselves. But I think we also need to take into account that some people are, you know, just self-motivated and they want to do better. I feel like that about the work that I'm doing. I don't necessarily want to do the same thing all the time. So if it's a project that I'm working on year after year, I want to reinvent it. I want to create a bigger challenge for myself, do more. It's not because of what anyone else will say or whether they will acknowledge it or not. Many times it will go unacknowledged. But I need to know that I set myself that challenge and I did it. It's for my own self-satisfaction. I need to know at the end of the day, I did 100%. I did my job. I need to be satisfied when my head hits the pillow at night. I need to know that I did a good job and I achieved what I set out to achieve. So it's not necessarily, I mean, I'm talking completely in a personal capacity.
No, that's why we got you here.
So if for me, it's never been about, oh, what will so-and-so think? Will so-and-so perceive me in a better way or not? Our perception, the way people perceive us is not necessarily something which is on our control.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't matter what we do at times. If someone doesn't like you for a particular reason, you can go to the moon and they're still going to think, oh, she could have done that better.
I was going to say,
or whatever.
They'll be like, oh, she sullied the moon.
Yeah.
Why did she go up there, Dave?
Or she got lost on the way
she's like,
to the moon, took a
or they would
detour.
say, kya zarurat thi jaane ki?
Yeah.
ठीक है? So, I mean, so there's always going to be that.
Have
There's
you
no end to
always
that.
had that drive, or did it develop over all your years, like working in these sort of environments?
I've been in several situations where this happens and I just realize that's not how I want to spend my time.
Nice.
I don't want to think like that.
But honestly, I feel
Yeah.
like it also comes from years of experience, and it comes from you building up, like you self-actualizing, like actualizing it. Like, you know that this is not how I want to spend this time.
Yeah.
I would much rather spend it on something else that actually gives me joy, rather than dealing with all of these thoughts.
Yeah.
Young kids, and this is like an example from literally a couple of weeks ago. Young kids that we hire here, they come into this brand new workplace and it's their first job, and then they're like, oh, you know, I went and took this proposal to the boss, and but the boss actually took the junior's opinion and like ran with that rather than mine. And is it because I'm a girl, or is it like I just wasn't taken serious enough? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, that's not. I mean, you gotta kind of, you have to build up those, like, I call them walls, or I call them armor, essentially.
Yeah.
Especially
and
when
you
you
roll with the punches.
You have, and you pick your battles. You don't have
absolutely.
to fight a battle for every little thing.
I have a very funny anecdote about that. So when I was working at a confectionery company, I made a big proposal, and we were supposed to launch this new category, and I worked on it day and night, and I'm sending the proposal to my boss at 4 a.m, and being there at 8 to present it, all of that. So I present, I know I've done well, etc., everything, and the person said, हाँ सब ठीक है, लेकिन ये जो इसका रंग है ना, ये अच्छा नहीं है. इसको अगर हम बदल लेना तो हम बड़ा रेड इस्तेमाल करते हैं, क्योंकि सर रेड हमारा कॉर्पोरेट कलर है, इसलिए हम रेड इस्तेमाल करते हैं. हाँ, लेकिन कुछ अगर और हो जाए ना, मतलब येलो कुछ इस तरह से हो जाए.
When they get stuck on one thing.
Anyway, we walked out, and of course I'm very frustrated. And my boss called me and said, Usar hai, ji. कहते, listen, you have to remember one thing. Not everyone in the world will love you, okay? You are not chocolate, okay? He says, even if you were chocolate, there'll still be somebody in the world who hates chocolate.
That's true.
I know many.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, You know,
Yeah.
don't take what, learn to filter constructive criticism from just noise.
That's a lesson that I've
So
also
that's
learned
the day
hard
when I
way.
said, okay, if it's constructive criticism, I'm happy to take it on board, everything. But it's just noise.
I learned the hard way also, where for me it was more along that, because as a producer, you have all these like great like visions, and you have like these plans and like these big elaborate things that you make
do
up
as
in
a
your
marketeer
head,
as
and
well.
then exactly same thing, and you put it all down to paper, and you want it to go just as you've planned, so that because you want it to come to life in front of you,
Right.
and then you go in and somebody gets stuck on one little thing, like this dot should have actually been here, and it just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And that's something that over the years I've had to learn to not go home and like not sleep all night and be like, but why didn't they actually listen to the entire pitch, or why did they stop it, or why did they pick this one thing? And I would just go on and on in my head. And after a while I was like, but why am I spending so much time doing
Yeah.
it? So you're absolutely
and
right.
them picking on the full stop doesn't make the proposal not good.
Absolutely. And that's something that the young people out there need to also understand. And I'm going to just let them learn the hard way like I did. That's more fun.
Honestly, I'm learning this lesson now. Like, and I've also been working, actually, I've been working 17 years. You've made me do the math. Like, I've been in some capacity or the other, a boss or a manager, something or the other. And I'm only now learning that, like, hey, you don't have to take it personally. Like, don't take it personally. Like, I keep reminding myself, like, I'm not saving anyone's life. I'm not running into a burning building. I don't have the cure. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm literally communicating.
But I understand why it's hard, because I think as creative people, we put a lot of ourselves into our work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us in there. There's a lot of heart. There's a lot of passion. And then if somebody criticizes it, you kind of take it as a rejection or as as a rebuttal of what you've done. So I understand why we take it personally.
And I think if there's any imposter syndrome business happening, one of those conversations and you're like, I knew it. Like, I mean, again, I know you don't feel that way, but I can say, like, I absolutely have. Like, if I could have a million fantastic shows, one show, actually just a week ago, somebody sent me a message, I reject your show. And I sent this to my other producer, Noor, and I was like, look at what this person said. And he's like, well, you reject him. And I was like, you know what? For the first time in a very long time, I thought it was hilarious. Like, I actually read it out loud on air. And I was like, I think his name was like David or something. And I was like, David, I hope you're having a great day. I accept your criticism. But it took a while to get there.
Yeah,
you know,
it took a
again, like
while.
you were saying, it's experience.
It's
really.
experience.
Yeah.
The one thing that I love, especially when you have those days, it's not going to be all, no matter how much of the armor you put up, there will always be that one day that will break you. It happens. It happens to all of us. But like the one thing that like I love about Dawn, and there being so many women, and also just the environment here, as colleagues, there will always be like those colleagues that'll come and kind of perk you up or come and like kind of validate you.
Sure.
Have you have a lot of those in your current job and also previously?
I think my team is the team that I work with. I have a fabulous team.
Right.
3 girls, 1 guy. So very balanced. But I think they're the ones that keep the brevity and the lightness to the mood every day, because as you said, not every day is easy. But it's nice having younger people on your team, because they have a very fresh take and a very fresh perspective.
We keep saying
and
this.
especially if you have millennials and Gen Z, I mean, just the way they describe things, it's they make something that's very serious and what you thought was life-threatening a minute ago, they make it so funny that it just lightens the mood. So I think it's all about who you surround yourself with.
I know
Not just
exactly
at work.
what you're talking about.
Not just at work. I think outside work as well. You need to have a really good team of
Support
friends,
system.
a support system. Your friends, your family, people who support you, who encourage you, and tell you to go back in. And sometimes it's not always nice and fluffy. Sometimes it's a bit of tough love as well. I remember a time I came back from a very hard day at work, and so I go to my mom, and this is the first time I'm usually very stoic and got it all together. So this is the first time I go to her and I said, I just can't do this anymore. I cannot bear it anymore. It's just, I whined and went on, and she's just, listening, and like, and so after I'd finished, she said, what absolute nonsense. Right? Because I said, no, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this. She's like, what absolute nonsense. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, hello, I was looking for some empathy and some sympathy. Yeah, exactly. She's like, what absolute nonsense. She's like, you're going to let like a bad day like defeat you completely. And then she went on and is like, we are Pathan, we are Afghan. Nobody has defeated us ever. Literally, superpowers have not defeated us. You are going to let a bad day defeat you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but that's a war zone, and I'm not at war. I'm just going to work. We don't need to. It's the same thing. Life is a war zone. You need to get back in. But that's the lesson. That's the biggest lesson that I think I learned from my mom. Never give up. Never give up. You have bad days. You go into a hole, you cry a little bit, then you pull yourself together, and as she would say, you get up, you dress up, and you show up.
Absolutely.
Right? So, I mean, I think, again, it's always very good to have support and everything, but at the end of the day, I think it starts and ends with you.
Actually, earlier when you were like, here at Dawn and you were talking about having support, I thought she was going to say, there's so many offices you can just walk into and start crying if you need
that
to.
Also.
Yeah, I was like, honestly, facts.
But
There really are.
10 years, not cried once. Can't say the same for a lot of other people here because it's kind of a rite of passage also.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it's their release. I don't judge them. It's their release. A lot of people release in different ways. And also, I also say this, like we work very long hours, especially in media and whatnot. We work very long hours. We're practically living with our colleagues.
Yes, certainly.
Practically. So in most times, I spend more time with them than I do with my own family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you really like, and our favorite term is we've been through the trenches together. And that's a different kind of bond.
I would say it's a different type of friendship. Some of the best friends you'll ever make in your life are the people that you worked with.
Yeah.
And like I say, like I have like 2 work wives. I'm allowed to say that term. No one else is. That I brought forth with me. And because you've just gone through it, and I'm so in agreement with you, like getting to meet with like Gen Z. I love Gen Z. I always say this. Like I think that they're brilliant. But Elhaam's twitching.
No, I
love them too.
They've taught me so many things.
They've taught me so much. But I'm with you. Like their approach to work and like that connection you make with people who maybe haven't been through the trenches that millennials have gone through in their mentality. It really does help. And and although like like women, they say like women tear women down. Like women's biggest enemy is women. I'm happy to say that although I have experienced some bad bosses in some ways, like for the most part, like we do have each other's back in a workplace a lot of the times, and like, make sure each other get where we need to go, look out for one another, opportunities and stuff.
Have you ever faced any examples in front of you where, because everyone says, oh yeah, women are the ones that bring other women down, or they'll climb over you and move up above the ladder. I've never actually had to face that experience or ever been exposed to that kind of an experience. I've seen men do it to each other. I've never seen women do it. Have you?
I don't think it's necessarily, again, a gender thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily women tearing women down or men tearing men down. I think it's just a question of you have good and bad people in every organization. If there's a bad person, they're going to tear anybody down, no matter what the gender. It's just a question of the fact that you've gotten in their way in some way or the other, and they need to tear you down. So I don't really think it's about women tearing each other apart or pitting themselves against each other or men pitting women against each other. I think it just depends on the kind of dynamic you have in the organization.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily gender specific. I think, again, there's just some good people and some bad people, just like anywhere else, any organization.
Life. Yeah, fair.
I do think that's fair. However, I've also found that I feel like they treat it like, hey, there's 12 seats at a table and one is pink. So kill each other over. And again, like I've been very lucky that that's not similarly, like that's not always been the case, but I have experienced where I have seen male colleagues like opinions and things like that valued more, even if I like a cartoon, it was the exact same sentence that was just repeated by someone else, and all of us were like, that didn't just happen. Or a place that was maybe lauded as like women empowerment, women first,
right,
and then aista you're seeing more and more women are leaving, or they're being replaced by male hires and stuff like that. So then it makes women more and more think like, hold up, like if I gotta keep this seat. And again, I think it's all misogyny in one way or form. Like I'm not sitting here being like, oh, she's literally sitting at home and being like, which women will I take out today? Because that's misogyny. They want us to think we're gonna rip each other apart. But I do think that sometimes there is a benefit to making women feel like, hey, you're lucky you're here, so do what you got to do.
It's a mindset.
Last. Yeah.
It's a mindset, and it's also...
Yeah, but then are you really going to put your validation in the hands of such people?
Now I wouldn't, but I'm pretty sure you... Actually, no. See, I've always worked amongst women, so I haven't really experienced it as much, because I've always I've more so been in psychological warfare that I'm losing, by the way, phenomenally. But no, I think now at my big age, I have a more of a spine and a sense of self, and like actually we were talking, I don't know if the cameras were on earlier, and we were talking about how like I deal with trolls online and stuff, and like my top tip is like, are you ever gonna respect someone like that stupid? Like truly, like the minute you take the power away, and I'm with you, like I apply it in work too, where I'm like, ew, like I think you're dumb. But 24-year-old Sabah who's maybe new in a corporate place, she would be like, please do not fire me, I just bought a new sofa. I
think again, luck plays a big part in I think everybody's career. I was lucky that when I got a seat at the table, at the big kids table, so I was the only woman there, but I never felt like I was brought on as a favor to me or as a token or something. My role sits at that table, period. So whoever occupies my role sits at that table. It just so happens that I'm a woman. It was not a prerequisite for that position. And I've actually sat on my management team since the time that I was a communications manager, because that's what the role was required to do. And now that I'm a director, I occupy a seat at the table in 3 market companies. So in 3 management teams, I sit on the management team. Some with a greater number of women, some with a lesser number of women. But it's never... I mean, I never see my counterparts as being given token roles. They're all... Some of them are in very technical roles, some of them are in sales, etc. Across all the market companies.
It was just the right mind was hired for the task.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm lucky that way. That I work in an organization where it's the mind and the ability that matches the role. It's not necessarily the gender that needs to be, there needs to be a specific gender in this thing.
Right.
But I do know that is the case in many companies. Many companies do give token roles as leadership positions to women. Yeah. And then, they're sort of really marginalized in those roles as well.
And then they're like given no resources to perform, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So then when they underperform in this made up role, they have a reason to boot them.
No, but they're usually given something which is just very light and fluffy and doesn't really require a great deal of performance. Yeah. Right. You need to do a few things a year. Oh, very nice. Excellent. Good job.
Yeah. Just to tick.
Yeah. Just to tick.
To tick off what, like, we've hired women in leadership roles. We have, diversity. Yeah. That diversity check that they want for their companies, which I think is the saddest thing, because you're not really winning at life if that's what you have. The other thing that a lot of companies also do is, especially when they hire a lot of women and when they're not used to hiring a lot of women, they will also hire everyone and then not take into account that some women need extra things. They need things that are very different to men. Like, for example, the most basic of examples, the bathroom situation. My God. It's a battle in most companies.
I was in a training recently for women leaders at LUMS, and you cannot imagine the amount of time that we spent on the toilet situation in certain offices, and that's the day I thanked my lucky stars. I was like, oh my God, thank God, we never had to think about that at many of the organizations that I worked in. But I remember working in a bank earlier on in my career, and I was in a branch. I was looking after a region, but my branch was on Regal Chalk, not the most glamorous of locations. So there was literally just one restroom, and it was filthy.
Yeah.
And we were only, I think, maybe 4 women in the whole branch. And, nobody really cared. And we used to, I don't know how many times we campaigned, कि जी इसको साफ करवाएं, इसकी कोई timing रख लें, कुछ कर लें, anything and everything we were willing to do. Nothing happened. Then finally, all of us would just lowered our water intake a great deal during the day.
Same. I had a job like this where it was a sea of men and there was just like 4 or 5 women.
Yeah.
Even if it's one woman, give them another bathroom for God's sakes, because the men are filthy.
Yeah.
And they don't need a lot, but we do.
Yeah.
Like the other thing that companies tend to, and especially in Pakistan, I feel like they overlook a lot of things that people might need, not just women, people might need, and they're just like, no, we've given you everything, and it's a generic blanket thing. But like, women who have children, who get pregnant, go on maternity leave, come back, there's no daycare in most companies. The FMCGs, the ones that have these international
most
SOPs
global companies do.
Most global companies will have that in place. But local companies, you don't really see a lot of that.
No.
And I'm saying this because even here, no matter how women empowered we are at Dawn, I have a colleague who's been fighting for a room for one of her employees to just, after maternity leave, come back to work, but her kid is too small and too young to be left alone. She just needs a room here and has been fighting for a room. So now finally, I think they're hopefully getting a room. So the good fight we won, but why do we have to battle it?
Yeah.
Why is it not something that is priority in most companies? Why is it not talked about in most companies?
Especially since those same things are used as a way to justify like a hiring gap between genders or a wage gap between genders. Like when you're going to sit there and be like, well, I don't want to hire a mom because blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, here's a solution. And then you get this incredible mind who's just going to better your whatever your company is doing, right? But instead, you're just like, ugh, put that away.
It's unfortunate. And it's, like I said, many global companies, that's not the case. They do have that because that's the standard SOP all around the world. However, I think in local companies, even now, there are very few women. There are very traditional roles in which women are hired and some which are not, they are not. And for them, I suppose it doesn't make sense to invest that much in it because and unfortunately our social structure or our infrastructure within the country doesn't support it either, because in a lot of countries abroad, even if there's not a daycare within the company itself, there are several daycares around the community which you could use. Especially for like small businesses, etc., who don't have the premises, etc. But you have those kind of community services available, which unfortunately is not the case.
Right.
And that becomes, I think, a major deterrent for a lot of women to keep on working.
Right.
Despite wanting to excel in their careers and having the ability to excel in their careers. But I think ultimately it becomes a choice for them unless they have a very supportive family who are willing to support their dreams and support them with the whole parenting process as well.
Do you think being a woman in like a leadership role, we can change that perspective within companies, or because over here we fought for what we wanted. We weren't doing it for ourselves, we were doing it for other women working here, that everyone's going to actually benefit from it. So do you think that like this happens in other companies, or have you come across other women in leadership roles actually changing the perspective or changing people's minds as to what all they need?
For sure. I think, in many of my previous roles, I've seen colleagues who were women, advocating for certain things, which every women in the organization would be able to participate in or be able to take advantage of, so to speak.
Right.
I certainly do that within my own team. And like I said, I'm lucky to work in an organization where most of those things are taken care of. But yes, I think you're very right that it's up to women who are in senior leadership roles to bring these things to the attention of the powers that be, because many times it's not even an intentional thing. It's just a question of being uninformed.
Absolutely.
And of not realizing.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
even
So,
what
yeah.
you said earlier, right? That it's just the gap that already exists. Like
Yeah.
they might not have encountered it, or they don't have, they're like, why invest in something which only impacts one person?
Yeah.
But sorry, when Elhaam was saying that, made me think, now if a daycare situation is brought into a building, even if it was one woman's, you know, it's a domino effect, because you have no idea if there might be
Yeah.
dads here who are like, hold up,
Yeah.
if I can bring my child in,
Yeah.
that means that my wife, my, you know, the mother of my children has more options and doesn't, you know, not to say you get saddled with your children, but let's keep it 100. Sometimes you get saddled with your children. So it could have an effect like that
Yeah.
for real, for
Right.
sure. Oof. Empowerment.
I love it. We
Yeah.
were talking off camera about things that make us feel empowered. What is it that makes you feel empowered within, like whether it's at work or whether it's out of work? As a woman, what makes you feel empowered?
I think for me, it's different things. I think, so my job requires me to be on stage a lot, literally on a stage. And I know some people find it terrifying, some people hate it, etc. I'm like, you put me on a stage, it's 100 people.
Very comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah. And
That's
I could
amazing.
be there. And I feel very empowered at that time. And I feel very powerful at that time.
Right.
So it's things like that. Making a good presentation, delivering on what you need to. That makes me feel empowered. I think if we were to take it to another angle, on a vanity-related side, I think for me, if I've got my heels on,
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Nice.
Yep. And if I'm really in a very ferocious mood, the day I'm gonna, take over the world, like,
Yeah.
so it's heels and my red lip, and yeah, I'm good to go.
I love
You
to
are
hear
That's
it.
my armor.
speaking- Yeah.
That's my armor.
I am
Yeah.
feeling. You and I are very similar.
I was actually going to say that you
I'm wearing my
literally-
heels today, even though I know they won't be visible on camera. But I was like, okay,
No, I checked them
I
out.
need
The
to-
minute you said that, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But no, you literally just said what each thing that belongs to each of us. Hers, that powerful red lip, that
Yeah.
back straight. For me, it's talking. It's literally it's like I have a command of a room, and like
Yeah.
I know I'm killing
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
I know
basically.
I know women have this reputation of being very vain, which I don't think is true. I've seen a lot of vain men as well.
Yeah.
But
We're in
yeah.
media.
But
Trust me, we know.
But I read a wonderful quote once that it said, Bill Cunningham said it, that fashion is our armor against the world, right? So when we really dress up and we know we look good, it just adds, I think, to the
Absolutely.
power that we have.
Absolutely.
100%.
100%.
100%.
I want to end this by asking one of my other favorite questions. Being a woman in power, being a woman boss lady is what I'm going to call you,
Thank you.
going forward, because that's what you are. Being a boss lady, I mean, it's a lot. Like, you working really hard, you're flying to all kinds of places,
Yep.
being on stage, all of that. How do you decompress? Like, when you come home, what is it that you do, like behind the scenes after work is done, to kind of recharge so that you can then get up and get going the next day again?
So I'm going to talk about what I used to do a year ago, because that's not applicable anymore.
Right.
So what I would look forward to at the end of the day is just to go and see my mom and really like chat and gossip about the day, and that's how I would kind of decompress.
Right.
Now I'm sort of having to relearn how to do that in a different way. And so it could be anything. I mean, working out, walking, especially I love going to a park and just walking. Travel for pleasure, not for work, where
Yeah.
you don't do anything and you meet some friends, you laugh over stupid things.
Yeah.
And I think now I'm making a very concerted effort, because I'm relearning how to do it, is to make fun a priority in my life. I think that's really, really important. Often when we're growing up, and especially when we're going through a career, we often forget who we were.
Yeah.
And, a lot of us brush it aside that, that was that was then, this is now, I'm not that person anymore. No, but that person is still you.
I
And it's
convinced
still inside,
myself
yeah.
for a very long time. I convinced myself. I was like, these are the years when I can really put in the work and I can really put in the hours and get going and get what I want to do. And, I have lots of time. Later on in life, I can slow down and go and have fun and this and that. I ended up missing out on a lot.
Yeah.
Like I missed out on all those opportunities to hang out with my friends or
Yeah.
go on a trip, or
Yeah.
I have regrets
Yeah.
because of all of that time that I put
missed
aside.
out on it too. I don't regret it, but I missed out on it too because it was not a luxury that I could afford, literally or figuratively.
Yeah.
At the time, I had to focus on my career. I had to focus on making money, settling my mom and myself, etc. All of those things, and yes, I sort of lost my youth in that, so to speak. But I don't regret it because it enabled me to look after my mom, to build a life, or I like to say curate a life for myself, which I want to live.
Right.
So I'm grateful for that. And now I'm making up for lost time.
More
So
power to you.
it's never too late. So yeah.
That's an excellent thing that I would love to end on, because you're absolutely right. It's never too late. You can do it whenever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, more power to you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming here and sharing all of these words of wisdom with us and validating me. Which
my
I
pleasure.
love. I love having someone. And this is, like I said, part 1. We're gonna have you back. Absolutely
I've already
have you
marked.
back.
I think I've rambled on about myself
No.
for long enough. I'm very sure.
I feel like all those Gen Z kids out there need to hear these things. They need to hear these
Frankly,
stories.
millennials, people even older, because you gave point of views that I absolutely love. I got it, like the mentality of I'm here to kick ass, like, and I'm here to do what I got to do and not be pandering to anybody.
Yeah.
That is very rare. And I don't just say this as a narcissistic, insecure
Well,
media
I mean,
personality, but yeah.
I think I've learned that life is short. You don't get another shot. And do you really want to play out your one shot thinking about what everyone else is thinking and worrying about that? Or do you want to just live your life and live the life that you want?
Damn right. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you.
today's show. We talked about it, guys. And we can check out things in the
All the
bio.
links, yeah.
Bye.